You're good.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the agenda for March 15th, 2021 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? I have Chris, or I don't have a mover. I have Paul moving and I have Mr. McBurney seconding. I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accept the agenda for the March 15th, 2020 council meeting as presented. So Deputy Reeve Sight. Councillor Falconer. Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes,
So that motion carries 7-0.
thank you very much. Next is disclosure of pecuniary interests. Anybody? Not seeing any hands. We'll move on. Number 4 is public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to an item of business on the agenda, 2 minutes per person. I'll leave it up to Carson to see if anybody's on the phone or anything that wants to. Not hearing of any. We'll move on to number 5, the consent agenda. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1, and further the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.2 and 5.3.5 for information. Do I have a mover? I have Rick moving again. Do I have a seconder? I have Deputy Reeve Sight seconding. Is there anything in the minutes, on those minutes, that council would like to pull out for conversation? I have Chris Palmer looking for some information. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Reeve. I guess it's 533. We're getting more and more letters, and everyone has the right to write a letter or have a comment. And I don't know how to put this, but how many does it take before we take action, discuss, whatever, however you want to put it? I'm just wondering if we need to listen to our residents and, well, in this case, people that use our services. And I'm just throwing that out there.
Just to bring council up to speed, we will be having a final meeting as far as the Reeve is concerned, a final meeting with Morris Turnberry to come to terms of something. Or Trevor Sites, did you have something you wanted to add? Deputy Reeve Trevor Sites?
Yeah, just a comment to Councillor Palmer's question. Obviously, any information that we take from people who are utilizing the service, we should take the information as we get it. And staff are also getting this information, and sometimes we're not even getting the information. Some of the times we're just staff are hearing this information too. So any as council is aware, any reconsideration can be done for a decision that has been made by council. It requires 2/3 motion to reconsider. So any councillor can put forth that motion if they so choose to want to reconsider these types of things, as we've talked about before. So I just wanted to make comment that I take every information that we get from not only North Huron residents, but people who are utilizing the service as it relates to what this means. But at the end of the day, we made a decision based on what we thought was in the best interest of North Huron at the time. And if there's different information that people think that should be changed, then reconsideration is potentially warranted. But at this point, not seeing any councillor requesting reconsideration at this point. But that's what I would just like to pass back to Councillor Palmer as it relates to his comment related to this 5.3.3.
Thank you very kindly. Paul, just before I hand it over to you, I just want to also say to Councillor Palmer that right now I don't have my information in front of me, but I've been working on it for about 2 weeks now. But I want to make it very clear. Morris Turnberry's CAO, and I have it in writing, in one of the very first meetings said that they, Morris Turnberry, want user pays. They are no longer paying for anything. And they've reduced the amount they paid to us this year for last year by, I think, 40% for a lot of stuff. And next year, in their budget, they've cut it again, I think another 40%. So they're not paying us anymore for Morris Turnberry. And they, not us, and let's get this straight, and I will have this ready for our meeting. Their CAO said that it would be the Morris Turnberry ratepayers would pay for the use, the people that are using our services, not the municipality. They have made the change. We're just simply compensating North Huron. So let's get that straight as our council. We have it in writing from their COA, who says they're no longer paying for anything. It's up to the users, the end users, to pay. So that's why it happened, Chris. Go ahead, Paul. Paul, you're muted.
Reeve. Yes, I was just relaying back to that letter there. I just felt that as a counselor, Deputy Reeve Sykes said he hasn't heard from anybody. But my concern was I felt that we didn't discuss that the proper way there. Maybe that's my feeling on that. So, but you said we'll be discussing it later on. So I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else? Not seeing any. Is there anybody else who would like to bring anything out from the correspondence? Not seeing anybody. I'm going to hand it over to Carson for roll call.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent item 5.1.1, and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.2 to 5.3.5 for information. So that will be a recorded vote. So Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer? Councillor Heffer, you are muted there. Councillor Van Hitterson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Moving on to 6.1, John Graham, Veolia Water Canada 2020 Annual Activities Report. And if you're out there, Jonathan, I'm going to let you speak first, and then we'll have the.
Good evening, Your Worship. Thank you for having me here virtually. I believe Carson's going to change the slides for me. I've got them up on my screen also. Hopefully everyone can hear me just fine, and I'll carry on. So this is, as you mentioned, the water and wastewater operations and maintenance information for 2020. And the next slide will probably just state water on it. I'll go through the water things first for Wingham and Blythe. So this has to do with the maintenance improvement capital projects. Wingham Water, routine corrective maintenance for our CMMS program. That's a computer maintenance program. We did some work on well 4 for a 10-year well inspection, did some repairs. A couple gate valves were installed there. New flow meter for well 4. Generator was for serviced and had to replace battery at well 4. Harling Terrace was part of the capital reconstruction. And we did unfortunately have 7 water main breaks that were repaired in the Wingham distribution system. Blythe Water, same thing, did the preventative maintenance based on the CMMS. Well 1, 2 generator, again serviced, put new batteries. Generator repairs at well 5. Well 5, we replaced the VFD, which is the variable frequency drive that helps the pump go to certain speeds up and down by computer. Also, there was only one water main break in Blythe. Next screen, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, Parks, water inspections for 2020, which we've discussed previously. We had 100% in Wingham. Blythe, which we talked about last year, was 95.79%. There was a missed residual on a day that we should have taken one. Reported that, and everything was fine going forward. We do have elevated strontium levels in Blythe raw water, which I will allude to in further slides down the road. We are discussing with public health and here in public health just the past few days. So the 2020 reports were in last week's presentation, but the other inspections were this year, 2021, and we did have 97.78% from the ministry and 100% in Blythe. So trying to get back on track because of the way the ministry was doing them. We'll present those next year, but I believe Dwayne and Jamie do have a copy of those reports if they're needed. Next slide is the water taking limits. The water taking limits are important for development for your area. So Wingham 2020 water, the permit has the numbers listed for each well. So we're up to allowed 11,000 plus cubic meters a day. The maximum flow on a day was just under 2,400 cubic meters, and average is usually about 1,100 cubic meters. So that's a very good scene there. Shows there's a permit to take a lot more water if need be, and you're at a good limit of not overtaking water. Next slide, please. That will be the Blythe limits here, and there's 3 wells, of course, well 1 and 2, which are originals. Well 5 was put in a number of years ago, allowed 3,500 cubic meters more or less per day. Looks like maximum combined was only 100, well, almost 1,000 cubic meters, so 26% of what you're allowed, and the average is down around 11%. So again, the ability to take more water if need be, permits at a good limit. Next slide is a water quality summary. In Wingham, we took distribution residuals upwards of 472. The average residual, which is 0.98 milligrams per liter. Milligram per liter, again, is basically a part per million, and 0.98 is a good number. You have to keep a certain residual throughout the system for disinfection purposes. Did 366 treated water because there was a leak here. Chlorine residuals were taken, and well 4 only at 352, but we had well 4 down when we were doing the work on the well, so therefore you can't take the residuals at that time. Similarly in Blythe, distribution residuals upwards of 470, and the average residual running around 0.96 milligram per liter. 366 taken at well 1 and 2, and also 360 treated waters taken at well 5, all within required limits. Next slide is called adverse sample results. Wingham, we didn't have any adverse sample results. There was an observed situation at well 4 that caused us to look into cleaning and repairing the roof and parts of the reservoir to ensure that the raw water wasn't entering into the treated water reservoir. So that was some of the work that was being done. That's why well 4 was down. Blythe, we had a couple of lead samples. Unfortunately, they were taken off of a hydrant, and the time of year didn't want to run the hydrant very long. Sometimes the hydrant ports have a lead packing around them and can cause that adverse effect. So the next samples were retaken, and of course no lead well below the MAC. MAC is the maximum allowable concentration. Next slide, please. I think will be wastewater. Similarly, we'll go through those that way. So wastewater for both, again, we did the preventive maintenance activities on the gear drives and cleaning some UV lights in Wingham. Put a new knife gate. 48 UV lamps are ordered for the system. Always need to keep good stock on hand. Pump station replaced bearings and seals on impeller on a pump. I repaired fuel leak on the generator, and part one of the 4 sanitary flushing areas in Wingham were completed in 2020. Blythe, we did some routine maintenance performing throughout the year and followed the CMMS program, and repaired a flight pump in the sewage pit, and flange T repaired at that time too. Wastewater capacities in 2020, Wingham. Wingham's a little different in the sense that any high flows can go into the lagoon and fed back through the plant. So it allows for those large flow events to come into the plant, go to the lagoon and come back through. So there's no bypasses for that reason. So again, it's max flow and annual daily averages there you can see on the screen. Blythe now does have a bit more of a concern with the peak flows when they're very high. There's something called a secondary bypass. The filters cannot process the amount of water coming at it because it's just held back. So it has to, as not back up into the town, we have to call in a secondary bypass. Mind you, it's getting some treatment, just not all the full treatment, and that does happen in Blythe more often than not. Next one slide, sorry. Waste plant at Wingham, there was none, no bypasses. There was 2 in Blythe at the sewage treatment plant 2020. They were measured in secondary, as I mentioned before, and always due to most always due to precipitation and or melt. Longest bypass was 34 hours, and the total of the bypasses in 2020 were 53 hours, measuring the volume and reporting it to the ministry as required. Next slide, please. Wastewater quality summary. Talking about here of treatment process. These are samples that we have to take, sent to the lab, so that it's basically saying 98% of biological oxygen demand, almost 98% total suspended solids removed, almost 89% phosphorus removal, and some 95% at nitrogen. So those are stated as what you're removing. So those are good numbers. You're removing a fair bit of the effluent and within the quality of the parameters needed for effluent discharge. Same with Blythe. We had 98% and most of them 95% phosphorus removal. So those are fairly good numbers and well in the effluent limits. Again, we talked about the heavy precipitation bypasses. Extra comments that we've got on here is Blythe sewage plant effluent discharge by January 2021 is to ensure that there's no chlorine hitting the river. And this had been brought forth before. We are currently working with the town and BM Ross, and currently Veolia is taking residuals and adding sodium thiosulfate and taking dissolved oxygen tests to ensure that the water is meeting those parameters from the federal limits. And the next one, as I discussed earlier, Blythe strontium, we just had a meeting with Public Health and Huron Public Health the other day on Friday. We've got it set up to take strontium, calcium samples quarterly to see if there's anything out in the distribution. There's some numbers at the wells. It's a difficult concept because there are some federal levels, but the Ontario system doesn't have these maximum levels in their systems, basically being a little proactive. So it's nice that the health unit's on board now and we're working with them, and those results will be available probably in April. That is when we start our first tests on the schedule that the health unit has set up. And I think that's pretty much the presentation. I hope I didn't have any information that MAC and all the numbers that I'm so used to saying. So I hope I explained them. And if there's any questions or anything on that, please let me know.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm going to throw it out to the council. Is there anyone that would like to ask questions of Jonathan? Go ahead, Deputy Reeveside.
Yes, John. My question is more as it relates to the Blythe wastewater capacity and the bypasses. I know we've had this discussion before. What, in layman's terms, what does the municipality have to do other than build another waste treatment facility to get us where our bypasses aren't necessarily that significant? And I don't know whether they're significant or not when you say 52 hours. That really, it's hard for me to know whether that's a significant time to be on bypass or not. But I think any time that's on bypass is not ideal. So I guess, what can the municipality do to get us down, get that peak flow down in order to not have these events where we have bypass?
Yes. Again, a really good thing, but a costly thing would be an engineer designing and developing a huge plant. But on the other hand, on the layman's terms, one easy one is some cammering of the existing sanitary system and see if there's infiltration issues where water's coming in heavy rain. If people have their roof leaders connected in, that can add to the flow during precipitation. Also, there's a potential there can be holding tanks, but again, you have to design a holding tank for that flow, or lagoons like Wingham has, to hold that extra flow. And again, if you put a demand or a development of that nature and pay money, and if it overflows that, then you're bypassing anyways. So I mean, that would be an engineer to design and develop that, as opposed, like a lagoon, as opposed to a building. So checking the sanitaries with a camera, companies can come in and videotape during rain events and see if there's infiltration problems.
Thank you, John.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Paul. Mr. Hepper. You're muted, Paul.
Through you, Reeve. Yes, John. I was just wondering, you mentioned about 48 light lamp bulbs there. How long will that last? Just curious. For the Wingham.
Yeah, it's depends on the life and what's going through the plant. Usually that's a year. We'd like to have a stock with a year. They are quite expensive, but the ministry wanted us to run them annually, where we tried to at certain parts of the season not run them. And also with COVID, we ensured to have a good supply back, because a lot of the supplies are harder to get these days. So that'll do a year for sure.
Thank you, John.
Do I see any other councillors that want to answer some questions? Not seeing any. John, I have a few questions too, and it may not be to do with as much as your presentation tonight, but you may be the man to answer the questions. And if not, maybe some of my staff could step up and answer some of the questions that come to mind. So I think I've got about 4 or 5. So I'm just going to start, John. If you're called out to a location in another municipality, let's say Morris Turnberry, that has sewer and water hookups from North Huron, and a problem is on the municipal side, what Morris Turnberry's municipal side, and you fix it, who do you send the bill to?
Well, we've been doing the work as per the agreement. That would be going to Wingham initially. And at this time, we would ensure that the safety of property damage and environmental problems are looked after. So yes, it would be it that way. And I think also on the other side, if it was in Belgrave side, that water main would go to Morris Turnberry as a cost.
I appreciate that. And who would you report this to? If there was a problem, would it come, because it's in Morris Turnberry, does it come back to us to be reported to?
I would treat it, Your Worship, as right now, as we have in the past, as a water system. That is a drinking water system, Wingham. We have a lot of cross-border ones. We have them in Lucknow. We have them in Lakeshore, Amberley Beach. And my representative area, which is a lot of the Huron County and Bruce County places, my responsibility for a break on a drinking water system will be to the town and or the municipality that I deal with for that drinking water system. So that's who I would, Jamie is who I'd be letting know something's going on.
Okay, so in both cases it would come to us. When the road's torn up, and this may be for Donna, when the road's torn up and we have to replace a water main or a sewer line, and this doesn't matter whether it's in Morris Turnberry, South Huron, or here, when we finance that out, does the reserves from the water pay for everything, or does they just pay for the water and sewer lines, and then the money for the gravel and the asphalt come from a different source?
So is your example like a water main break, or what exactly is your example?
So we have a water main break or a lagoon sewer break, and we have to dig the road up and we have to fix it. And then when we're done fixing it, we have to put the pavement back in and the gravel in. So does that whole cost is that coming out of the reserves for the water, or does that come out of different places to pay for? Like, would you take the pavement out of roads for paying it?
Well, that would be up to Public Works to decide that, but there would be a maintenance item. It's not a capital item. It would be fixing a problem in year, and we do budget for water main breaks and such.
Okay, so we do. So then, Donna, let's just follow that up a little further. If we decided we had to replace a whole street because, let's say Edward Street, we're finally going to do Edward Street because the water and sewer mains down below there are so bad they have to be replaced. So we're going to do the whole road now, the whole street. Would all the money again come out of water and sewer, or would the road topping and the gravel come out of another area?
Yeah, so if we were going to do something like that, it would have to go through your budget and be approved. And then water, sewer, and roads and storm and sidewalks would each be allocated a portion. But that would be a capital project that would be, as I said, would have had to have run through the budget process first.
Yeah, so we end up taking money not only out of the water and sewer, but out of the tax base too to pay for that.
Yes, for the road piece, that we would allocate the asphalt part of it to the roads.
Okay, thank
you. Yeah, and I mean, every circumstance is a little bit, for that one for sure, on a full reconstruction, roads, it would certainly pay a portion, but some of your water main breaks get a little iffy of whether or not how much goes back to the asphalt. Normally, the Public Works guys come in and pave, water main breaks, and they do some sort of sharing, but Jamie could tell me better how much of a sharing they do for patching.
Yeah. No, that's close enough, Jamie. That's fine. That answers my question. So the next one is, if we as a council turn our eyes away from an illegal hookup or a damaged piece of water or sewer pipe that could cause health hazards for our are we responsible for that? Suppose in 10 years down the road, it was found out that something happened and we knew about an illegal hookup or something like that. 10 years down, would this sitting council still be under gun for a legal action against us? Just in case councillors don't know, when you became a councillor, there's one thing that you personally signed for by Ontario law. You are personally responsible for the water system and the sewer system. So if you don't keep things up, you could personally lose your farm or your house for not doing your job properly. But I'm sure we're all aware of that. John, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you followed up pretty good there. It's called standard of care. So anything like that should be brought forward, and it needs to be taken care of as we would as a private company. That stuff we look into because of illegal connections, the potential for cross contamination, anything like that, and we are also personally liable. So yes, we take that pretty serious.
But just out of curiosity, then, if our water and sewer system were going into another municipality and it was not in a place where our staff could see or hear about it or let us know the hookups that we weren't aware of, would we, this sitting council, still be responsible for that, or would that fall upon another municipality that does, even if they don't have a contract with us?
Yeah, I'm unaware of that. Now I know what you're gathering here with your municipalities that you're kind of alluding to. And we do look after both, so therefore we're responsible for both in either way, or municipalities. But that probably is out of my professional realm to be able to answer that one appropriately. I could probably find someone that can give you a better answer on that one.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I wouldn't mind an answer back for our council at a further date. Just the next one is, who notifies you about a hookup? So obviously we have our staff here in North Huron that would notify you, but if we can't make an agreement with either Central Huron or Morris Turnberry or ACW or anybody else around us, who's responsible to let you know that somebody's making a hookup in one of our other communities that are hooking up to our system?
Well, I think there was the agreement that would have each drinking water system responsible for that, because they would have to go and pay a hookup fee. So we only find out from any municipality that I look after when we are given a work order that someone's come in and paid a building permit or paid their plumbing fees. We would be the one to say, we've turned the water on, to let you know when to start billing a person for water. But that's only way we would find out usually, unless we drive by. I mean, we keep our eyes open.
So if somebody was not getting a building permit and they were just hooking up, it honestly would, I mean, how would they even know they have to call you? That's not clear to anybody. That's not fair to anybody. The end user are us. I just caught that now. So we may have to look into that, maybe Ontario-wide, because if you've already got a building and you're hooking up, how would you know you'd have to contact anybody? And then, of course, the repercussions of after. Okay, thank you for that. When there is a hookup being done, are you guys there during the hookup to make sure it's done properly?
Yeah, to a service. Some municipalities request us to be there and check it. We will turn the water on if it's a brand new hookup. We will ensure the connection is right at the curb stop. Plumbing inspector is responsible out to the curb stop, which is property line.
Okay, thank you. Last question I have is, in the last year with COVID and everything going on, have you been to any cross-border hookups with North Huron and all of our participating municipalities around us that get by from us?
Have I seen any cross connect, or was it a connection across a border? You mean?
So if someone across the border, across the border, have you been to any connection hookups across borders with us over the last year?
No, I haven't, but my senior operators probably would. I've been working from home, so I don't get out as much, but I could ask definitely our senior operator who's been there for many, many years, and he would answer that specifically. Thank you again. If you can just answer those two questions through our CAO and he'll get it to us, I would appreciate it.
And my friend, I will not hold you up any Oh, go ahead, Christopher.
Yeah, just a question about clean water. There would be, through you, Reeve, there would be a safety for us is that that's one way, it's under pressure. So even if there was a suspicious, I'm not in favor of them by any means, but if there was a suspicious water tributary or hookup, I think liability speaking, we should be safe, right, John? Because, you know, the water's not going to back up. Clean water will not back up because it's under pressure.
As long as it remains under pressure, sometimes during a water main break, it can draw down low pressures. That's why the health unit likes to call a precautionary. If water systems are experiencing below a 20 psi for 10-15 minutes, or there's different categories of break where if it does break, it can draw suction and pull water. That's why they really want to watch cross connections or someone hooked up to another well in their backyard. That's the important reason. But with a water tower or standpipe, sorry, it's usually, you know, quote unquote, usually good, but nothing is impossible.
Okay.
I just add to that, Chris, based on personal experience and being in the food industry most of my life, that I've had positive pumps right on the main street that would blow the Great China House right away if we ever hooked them up backwards. So yeah, it is possible, and I'm witness to that. Okay, anyone else? Not seeing anybody. Jonathan, thank you very much for your yearly presentation. We do appreciate it, and you keep yourself safe.
Thank you, and you all too. Have a very good evening.
Thank you.
Take care.
So the motion is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the presentation from John Graham, Viola Water Canada regarding the 2020 annual activities review for information. And further, the council receives the 2020 annual and summary report for the Blythe and Wingham water systems for information. And further, that the council receives the 2020 annual report from the Blythe and Wingham wastewater systems for information. And further, that the 2020 annual and summary report for the Blythe and Wingham water systems be available for the public free of charge and posted on the Wingham website. Do I have a mover? I have Paul Heffer moving. I have Anita Van Hittersum seconding. Carson, it's your turn.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0. So just before you move to agenda item 7.1.1, Your Worship, so Monica is still tied up at the Central Huron Council meeting right now. So the next two items are hers. So if you want to jump to 7.1.3, and then when she joins, we'll move back to her two agenda items.
Okay, thank you, Carson. 7.1.3. This is the reconsideration of the opt-out of the cannabis retail location in North Huron. I think I'll read the motion and get a movers, and then we'll have a conversation. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the clerk dated March 15th, 2021 regarding the reconsideration of the opt-out of cannabis retail location in North Huron for information purposes. And further, that the council hereby agrees to permit the licensing of cannabis retail locations within its jurisdiction. And further, that the staff be authorized to notify the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, AGCO, regarding council's decision. And further, that the staff be directed to prepare a draft cannabis policy statement for consideration by council. And further, that the staff be directed to present a report at a future meeting regarding the allocation of North Huron's $10,000 cannabis implementation fund. Okay, do I have a mover? I am not. Deputy Sipes is moving.
I will move for discussion.
Okay, and Councillor Falconer is seconding. Okay, let's open it up for discussion then. Who would like to start?
Reeve, I'd like Carson to go through his report, please.
Oh, I apologize, Carson. It's your turn again.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as council will be aware, this is a follow-up report stemming from the motion to reconsider process that occurred at the February 16th, or I guess February 16th and March 1st regular meetings. So after the motion to reconsider was voted in favor in the affirmative, council passed a motion requesting further information from the AGCO as well as other local municipalities, and thirdly from the business who is proposing to open a cannabis retail store in North Huron. So that really forms the structure of this report. What you will see in the discussion section is the follow-up information from each of those three entities. So in regard to the AGCO, staff reached out, and the direction we received was that if North Huron was to opt in after having previously opted out, basically we would be obligated to provide the AGCO with the resolution within 3 business days of that decision being made. And once this resolution is passed, basically it goes to the AGCO, they update their website, and it shows that we are a municipality where cannabis retail locations can be located, and basically their portal would be open for submissions in North Huron. And importantly, once this decision is made, it cannot be reversed. So while previously council opted out and you can opt in, once you're in, you cannot opt out anymore. The one thing that I did inquire into was the 150 meter school buffer zones. So as the CAO had previously noted in his reports in 2019, basically the legislation requires that you can't locate a cannabis retail store within 150 meters of a public or private school as defined by the Education Act. And so we inquired into whether that is the township's responsibility to ensure that stores aren't located within the 150 meter buffer zone. And the response we got back is it is not. The onus is not on the township. And basically the AGCO has developed through their portal a tool which shows where stores cannot be located based on the definitions of a school under the Education Act. And I believe that you can, ideally the system is not supposed to let you submit an application if it picks up that you're in one of those zones. The other piece that I reached out to the AGCO about was the public notice process. So what that entails, and specifically I wanted to know whether the municipality was automatically circulated on applications. And short answer is the municipality doesn't receive those notifications automatically. Basically the process is the applicant basically gets what is referred to as a placard, and they have to post that on their storefront, and that kickstarts the 15-day appeal period process. Then during those 15 days, the municipality and residents can provide comments. AGCO provides those comments to the applicant. The applicant has 5 days to respond, and then basically the registrar, being the province, would make a decision on whether to proceed with granting that retail location license. So that's basically the process as defined by the AGCO. The second section of the report is the information that we gathered provided by local municipalities. In large part, what you'll likely see is that it's not overly useful at this time so basically those municipalities that did opt in, what we found was that they don't have any retail locations outside. The only one in Huron County was Goderich. And then we also found it prudent to reach out to North Perth as well, as we knew that they had a location in Listowel. So the feedback we received from Goderich was they don't have any locations, but they have 2 that have been approved, and they will be opening doors shortly. And the one thing that their clerk did note is that their council had also actually passed a resolution in February of this year. And basically what they've recommended is to the AGCO is that municipalities should be automatically circulated on these public notice processes to provide comment. And you will have seen that resolution in the report. As for North Perth, the comments we received was that prior to the current cannabis store opening, many residents had voiced their concerns and opinions, but since opening, there have been no concerns from both a public perspective and an OPP perspective. So overall, in North Perth, it's been a beneficial experience. And then the third section is the information provided by the local business. Attached to the staff report, you will have seen a business overview that was written up by the applicants. And in addition to that overview, they just wanted to make note of the fact that their proposed location would be on the main street in Wingham, and that they have an active operating license for their business in Listowel, and that basically the only thing holding them up right now is North Huron opting out. So they're looking for North Huron to opt back in so that they can submit that application. In addition to the follow-up in those three areas, the one thing that staff want to make note of, if council is desirous of opting in to cannabis retail locations, again, it would be prudent to adopt a cannabis policy statement. And basically what staff would use with the statement is when staff become aware of the 15-day appeal period or public comment period starting for a proposed cannabis retail store, staff would submit basically this cannabis policy statement to the AGCO for their consideration. And basically it would feed into that public feedback process. So basically in the report, it's noted that if council is wanting to opt in, staff would prepare a draft policy for consideration, and we would present that at a future meeting. As for the financial impact section of this report, as council is aware, so we did receive $10,000 in the Ontario Cannabis Legalization Implementation Fund, and municipalities that opted in 2019 received a minimum of $15,000, some much more, some 15 at the minimum. And these could be used to offset the increased enforcement costs, public inquiries, paramedic services, policy development, etc. However, staff had not identified a need or a proper need for these funds yet with the opt-out, as there wasn't really an impact experienced. But what is recommended in the report is if council opts in, basically we would monitor the impact that's been experienced, if any, and then at a future date, staff would recommend, we would bring that report back to council and say, here's where the $10,000 should be allocated towards to address any impacts experienced. And that again is if there are any experienced. So that is the follow-up information requested by council. So I guess I'll turn it back to you, Your Worship, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if there is any.
Thank you very kindly, Carson. Okay, councilors, is there any questions? We have a mover and seconder. We know what's going on. Go ahead, Councilor Heffer.
Yes, through you, Reeve. I just wondered, there's 5 bullet points there, and Carson, you alluded to, or Dwayne, with monies extras it could cost for the increased paramedic, increased for the policing. Does that, if we want to go from a 10 to a 5 from Wingham Ward to the same coverage that's in Blythe and East Wawanosh, will that come into effect that we won't be able to do that? Like, we'll make that much difference in the money?
Through Your Worship, to answer Councilor Heffer's question, no, there would be no impact. Basically, these $10,000 in funds are specifically to offset any impact experienced by the legalization of cannabis within North Huron, as opposed to if council wanted to go to a 5.1 across the board for all of North Huron, that is just a decision based on when that contract ends, right? So this is just funds that was given to the given by the province to North Huron to basically address any impact, if there was any, related to the legalization of cannabis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heffer. Does there anyone else have any questions? I'm not seeing any hands, so I guess I have a mover and seconder, and the motion's been read. So Carson, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'll just read the motion on the floor again once more here. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated March 15th, 2021 regarding the reconsideration of the opt-out of cannabis retail locations in North Huron for information purposes. And further, that council hereby agrees to permit the licensing of cannabis retail locations within its jurisdiction. And further, that staff be authorized to notify the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario regarding council's decision. And further, that staff be directed to prepare a cannabis policy statement for consideration by council. And further, that staff be directed to present a report at a future meeting regarding the allocation of North Huron's $10,000 cannabis implementation legalization funds. So this will be a recorded vote. So Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
No.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
No.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 5-2, with the noes being Councillor Palmer and Councillor Heffer.
Thank you very kindly, Carson. Okay, I see Monica's back with us. So do we want to go back to 7.1?
Reed Bailey.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sight.
Sorry, I don't think it's not going to change my answer, but I did have a question about this, the cannabis policy statement. That policy statement to the clerk, through you, Reeve, that's not going to hold up any development on this particular property. Is that correct? That's just a policy statement that we have to develop in order to for the AGCO. Is that correct?
So through you, Your Worship, to answer Deputy Reeve Sight's question, the municipality is in no sense obligated to have a policy statement, but it's certainly recommended as it provides a starting point during the public notice process, right? So when that 15-day public notice period starts, it will give staff a document that can be provided to the AGCO along with any site-specific comments. So I'm sure there's municipalities out there without cannabis policy statements. I'm sure there's some with very comprehensive ones, but ultimately it's just a tool for staff to help staff use during the public notice process.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I think we'll go back now to 7.1.1. Monica, I do believe you're with us now.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much to council for accommodating me this evening. I had another meeting prior to this one that went a little long, so things have been pretty busy in the planning department, so we appreciate council accommodating us so we can get everything in for all of our developers. The application that I have before council tonight is an application for severance. Thanks for bringing that up, Carson. It's consent number 013 for 21. And just have you go to the next slide, please. This application can be considered a infill because it is taking an existing lot in Blythe and severing off the vacant backyard of the property to create an additional building lot. So the proposed severed area would be 684 square meters, and the land there is vacant. It's designated residential in the official plan and zoned R1, residential low density. The area retained would be 1,824 square meters. It has the existing house on it and consists of the existing single detached dwelling and a shed. And it also has the residential designation and the R1 zoning. So the next slide will show you the dimensions and the location of the proposed severance. So as you can see, this is located on the corner. Well, the retained land will be located on the corner of Morris Street and Wellington Street in Blythe. And the proposed severed lot is outlined in kind of a purple color there on our map, with the retained in a nice blue shade. And you can see from the plans provided by the applicant, the location of the existing house and garden shed, and then the severed lands, which are vacant lands in the backyard of that property. The proposed new lot would gain street access from Wellington Street, and the existing lot has its frontage on Morris Street. Next slide. So actually, I misspoke just a second there. The driveway for the Morris Street property is actually off of Wellington Street as well. So there would be two driveways side by side. Pardon me on that one. But this, you can see the aerial photo that shows you can make out the location of the existing driveway access for the retained property. And you can see the treed backyard that would be the severed lot. And then the final slide. So in reviewing this application, the planning department has reviewed whether this application is appropriate for the location. It does meet the minimum lot area and frontage requirements for the R1 zone. And it is meeting the intent of the infill policies for the North Huron official plan. So the proposed consent being consistent with the provincial policy statements in conformity with the county and township official plans, it is recommended that the application be recommended for approval with the recommended conditions.
Okay, thank you, Monica. So consent application report file number C13-21, owner applicant Gary and Heather Van Leeuwen, property description lot 16 and 17, registered plan 170, 264 Wellington Street, Blythe Ward, Township of North Huron, County of Huron, that the Council and Township of North Huron hereby recommend approval of the consent application file number C13-21, owner applicant Gary and Heather Van Leeuwen, my apologies. Property description lot 16 and 17, registered plan 170, 264 Wellington Street, Blythe Ward, Township of North Huron, County of Huron, with the conditions set out in the Huron County Planning and Development Report presented by Monica Walker Bolton at the March 15th, 2021 council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving and I have Trevor seconding. I'm going to hand it over to you when you're ready, Carson, for, questions, comments, or concerns. I don't think I can see all the screens, so if anybody has anything, just speak up. Not seeing or hearing anything, I'm going to hand it over to Carson for the vote.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to 7.1.2, and this is the housing initiative through the housing friendly lens. And again, we're going to have Monica speak to it, and then I'll get movers and seconders.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reeve, and thanks again for giving me the opportunity to speak to this report from the Planning Development Department. This is a department-wide initiative and a county-wide initiative. It is along with a suite of other initiatives that the county has taken on to try to promote more housing builds in our communities. In this case, we're trying to remove barriers that may exist in our current official plans and zoning bylaws to the construction of more housing and more dense housing. So to summarize where we're at with this process, we have some recommended policy and zone change ideas that were outlined in the plan provided. But we don't want this to be a prescriptive or a planning department top-down telling local municipalities what they need to do. In fact, each municipality will implement the housing friendly lens a little differently because the conditions are a little different in each municipality. So to that end, what the planning department has suggested is a workshop with council and staff to speak about each of the suggestions that are in our report and work together on a plan to implement those. Some might be used and some might not be used, or some new things might be added, or some things might be tweaked and changed. But the purpose of the workshop would be to find that sweet spot for North Huron and find the policies and zone provisions that are going to work best in the North Huron communities. So it would be our department's request that you receive our report for information and that you schedule a 2-hour workshop. And I believe the clerk and I have come up with a suggested date. If my memory serves correctly, it is May the 28th at 9 a.m. Carson's nodding, so my memory works today. So I would suggest that council consider passing a motion to set a special meeting for a workshop on the date I mentioned.
Okay, I'm going to thank you, Monica. I'm going to get a mover and a seconder before we go any further, but I just want to point out something to the clerk that is Friday, May 28th, and it will be ending at 11 o'clock probably. Anyway, housing initiative that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from Monica Walker Bolton, planner, regarding the through a housing friendly lens housing initiative for information purposes. And further, the council's workshop be scheduled for Friday, May 28th from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. to discuss the options and provide direction and implementation. Do I have a mover? I have Anita moving. I have Trevor seconding. Questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Trevor, then Christopher.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. Monica, when you talk about through the housing friendly lens, my assumption is that you're trying to targeting this. Was developers coordinated with this discussion? Is this a planning? Is this more of just an internal planning document, or like how was these housing friendly initiatives developed? I guess I'm wondering if that's part of the workshop. So I don't want to, but I'm wondering, was it initiated through development, or how was this this initiative initiated?
Yeah, fair question. I would say that to give the most honest answer, I was not directly involved in the consultations with developers, so I can't speak to that aspect of it. But what I can speak to is that many of the policies that are in there are based on our experience as planners, finding that there are a lot of zoning bylaw amendments being required, a lot of minor variances being required in order to facilitate the type of housing development that we'd like to see in our communities. So a lot of the policy and zone changes are driven from direct planning department experience. There are some other elements of the county's suite of housing initiatives that did have consultation with developers, like the residential intensification guideline. This is something that's separate from the residential intensification guideline. It's more about making amendments to the official plan and zoning bylaw. And most of those changes came from planner experience.
Thank you very much, Monica.
Okay, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Ray, through you to Monica, to everybody. My only concern here is that I don't want to forget R1, R2, like that single family dwelling. It seems to be just shoved under the rug. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm all for more housing, you know that. But when all we're hearing is high density, and yes, there's places for that, but as long as we don't forget that single family dwelling, because that's what a lot of people want. And I guess my other thought is May 28th is a tough time for me. If it's a rainy day, Monica, that'd be great, so order it. Into June is better, as I'm in the field.
Thank you for
You
those
want-
comments.
Anyone else? Not seeing any. I have movers. So Carson, I'm going to hand it over to you. I think I read it too, so I'm going to hand it over to you, Carson. Yeah?
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Hepper,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Don't like it, but okay.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very kindly. Now we're going to bounce forward to 7.1.4, which is return of the personal council or the in-person council committees and board meetings. That the council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the clerk dated March 15th, 2021 regarding a return to in-person council committee and board meetings for information purposes. And further, that the council directs all staff of North Huron Council committee and board meetings return to in-person meetings as of April 1st, 2021, and subject to the Huron-Perth begin in the green prevention, yellow protected, or orange restricted zone. And further, that if Huron-Perth moves to red control or gray lockdown, staff be directed to resume electronic formats for council, committee, and board meetings at the earliest possible time. Do I have a mover? I have Paul Hepper moving, and I have Mr. McBurney seconding. And I'm going to, Carson, did you want to talk to this, or was that maybe Dwayne, did you want to talk to this?
Nope, that'll be me, Your Worship. So this report is pretty straightforward. As council is aware, in December of 2020, council adopted an amendment to the procedure bylaw to allow for electronic meetings beyond declared emergencies. And the purpose of this amendment was to address Huron-Perth potentially moving to the red zone, as it would have prevented council from continuing to meet in person. And the way this amendment was designed was to give council the flexibility necessary to respond to any situation, as council ultimately retains the authority of when council, committee, and board meetings are to meet by electronic means. And at the time of this amendment, it was also expressed that council's preference is for all meetings to be held in person when it is safe to do so. So as council is aware, the Huron-Perth Public Health Unit moved from the orange restrict to the yellow protect zone on March 1st. And recognizing that council had previously stated their preference for all meetings to be in person when it's safe to do so, North Huron senior management team met on March 3rd, and based on all the considerations of the zone movements and everything that needs to be in place, North Huron could certainly make a return to in-person meetings as of April 1st, 2021, and staff would ensure that there are appropriate safety measures in place. So if council is desirous to return to in-person meetings, it's also staff's recommendation that all committees and boards return in person as well, in order to ensure consistency across the board and eliminate any potential confusion for members of the public who might want to join a meeting, who might not know whether it's being held virtually or in person. In order to do this, staff also arranged with for both the Wingham BIA board and Blythe BIA board to have meeting locations set in stone. And so the Wingham BIA board will continue to meet on their Thursday at 6:30 time slot, and that will be held in the Wingham Columbus Center. And the Blythe BIA board will meet on their normal Thursday at 8 a.m. time slot, and that would be in the Blythe Community Center. And then all other council and committee meetings would be held in the North Huron Town Hall Theater. And so this approach is really developed in conjunction with the Town Hall COVID-19 safety plan, which outlines when council is when it is safe to have in-person meetings and when it is not. So as noted in the future consideration section of the report, if council is not wanting to return to in-person meetings at this time, then staff will be seeking direction from council at a later date as to when it is desired. But if not, basically as of April 1st, staff will prepare for meetings to be held in person again with the March 26th special council meeting where there are 2 presenters already scheduled that will remain being held virtually. So unless there's any questions on the report, then the draft motion is certainly before council there.
Okay, I thank you, Carson. I'm going to open up to council. Questions, comments, concerns? Not seeing any. Still not seeing any. Carson, do you want to see what the vote turns out to be?
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated March 15, 2021 regarding a return to in-person council, committee, and board meetings for information purposes. And further, that council directs all Township of North Huron council, committee, and board meetings return to in-person meetings as of April 1st, 2021, and subject to Huron-Perth being in the green, prevent, yellow, protect, or orange restrict zone. And further, that if Huron-Perth moves to the red control or gray lockdown, staff be directed to resume electronic formats for council, committee, and board meetings at the earliest time possible. So this will be a recorded vote. So Deputy Reeves Sipe.
Yes.
Councillor Falconer.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you very kindly, Carson. We're going to go on to 7.2.1, Finance Department, BIA budgets. That the Council Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finance dated March 15, 2021 for information purposes. And further, that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby adopts the 2021 Wingham and Blythe BIA budgets as presented. And further, the council directs the staff to incorporate the Wingham BIA and Blythe BIA levies amounts into the 2021 Township of North Huron final budget for 2021 tax levy. Donna, did you want to speak to this first, and then I'll get a mover and seconder?
Sure, thank you, Reeve. So as required, the Blythe and Wingham BIA budgets have to come forward to council for approval after they have been approved at their annual general meetings. And so that has taken place. The 2 annual general meetings were held and the budgets were approved. So the Wingham BIA levy is for this year is proposed at $29,000 and the Blythe BIA levy is $9,733. The one thing I wanted to note for the Wingham BIA, it includes a substantial capital project, and that is for the new LED sign. So in their budget, they have $40,000 plus a contingency of $10,800 for a total then of $50,800. So of course that will depend on, how their tenders go and such as to what the price ends up. But I just wanted to note that as per their financial statements, the Wingham BIA doesn't have that whole $40,000 in reserves. They have $31,735, but they do have an accumulated surplus of over $20,000. So there's no problem. So anyway, what would happen is they would take for the $40,000 transfer from reserve, they would take $31,735 from reserves, and the balance of $8,265 would reduce their accumulated surplus. So, and then again, as I said, depending on how that price comes in, at the end of the year, then they may transfer any unused funds if it comes in favorably back into reserves. So is there any questions? Or Trevor, you're the member on the the Wingham BIA about this project. Did you have any comments that you would like to add to that?
No, the only comment I would have is that the committee, the prior chair, Mr. Kuyvenhoven, had brought that forward to the membership. There was no comments as it relates to the membership, and there is a significant thought that we would, based on depending on tenders, that we have got enough budget money that it's not going to be the full amount. They wanted to make sure they put the contingency in there just in case there was some unknown thing, but they're not envisioning any surprises on this thing. They've looked. It's been 2.5 years in the making, so they've looked at this 6 times over, and I don't think there's going to be any surprises.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve-Sipe. Is there any further questions from council?
Seeing none, how be we get a mover and a seconder? I have Paul moving, seconder for this.
Deputy Reeve does.
Okay, Deputy Reeve-Sipe does second it. I'm going to hand it over. Oh, and just last chance, questions, comments, concerns? Not seeing any, Donna. We'll move on. It's all yours. Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finance dated March 15th, 2021 for information purposes, and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts the 2021 Wingham and Blyth BIA budgets as presented, and further that Council directs staff to incorporate the Wingham BIA and Blyth BIA levy amounts in the 2021 Township of North Huron final budget and 2021 tax levy. So Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve-Sipe?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Has left the meeting.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. 7.2.2 is the financial statements of remuneration and expenses that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the 2020 Council Statement of Remuneration and Expenses dated March 15th, 2021, prepared by the Director of Finances. I don't believe Donna has to speak to this unless there's questions after we get a mover and seconder. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving. Seconder, please. I have Trevor seconding. Questions, comments, or concerns? Not seeing any. It's over to you, Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Heffer? Councillor Heffer, you were just muted there.
Yes, sorry.
Councillor Van Hittersum? Councillor Palmer? Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve-Sipe? Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. 7.2.3 is the 2021 -11 2020 development charges summary. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the 2020 development charges statement dated March 15th, 2021, as presented by the Director of Finance. And Dawn, I'm going to get you to speak to that before I get a mover.
Okay, thank you, Reeve Bailey. So as outlined in my report, in 2020, we collected $51,571.07 in development charges, which is good news. And since development charges were implemented in 2021, we've collected a total of $190,731.08 for the various projects as outlined on your report. So as you know, the original cost of the development charges was about $33,000, and we've since recouped that total out of the development charges collected, and we've paid out a couple of the projects. So that leaves us $152,702.19 for each of those projects as listed on that statement. Also, as you're aware, 2021 is the date when our development charges are up for renewal, and you have BM Ross coming into a meeting on March the 26th to begin that process for that's required for the 5-year review. So as any questions that I've heard from you over the last little while, I've asked BM Ross to make sure they speak to them, but this is just the very kickoff meeting, just the preliminary meeting on March 26th. So we'll get into that further on that date. So back to my report. Is there any questions about this evening's report for the 2020 development charges statement?
Don, I'm just going to speak to this one. I believe I was sitting on council when this came up. Can you guys hear me? Okay, thank you. I was sitting on council and we decided to do this. I do remember it was quite a hassle, quite a concern, because we weren't really, at the time, we weren't really asking for much money, and the $30,000 we'd have to pay back, goodness sakes, were we ever going to pay it back based on the amount of building that was going on at the time? And I see Donna smiling now. But it was quite a time. But this is a hard decision that council made back then, and look at the results of it. But it wasn't a popular one for the two reasons. One, we didn't have, if I recall, I think we didn't have them at all. Or if we did, they weren't really. No, we didn't have them at all. And what to charge everybody, and then oh my goodness sakes, $30,000 to pay to make it all happen. But it worked out in the long run. It has helped council since then, and it will help us. So I just want to just say that. The other thing, Donna, when we have our 5-year review, could you have them bring in charges from the development charges from other towns like Clinton, Seaforth, Godbridge, just a few other towns, so we can compare where we are financially, asking our customers as compared to other townships about our age, about our size, not age. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments or concerns? Seeing none. Carson, I believe I have movers. No, I do not have yes. Carson, do I have movers?
No, you still need a mover and a seconder, your worship.
Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you. I have Mr. McBurney and I have Trevor Seitz seconding.
Thank you, your worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the 2020 Development Charges Statement dated March 15, 2020, as presented by the Director of Finance. So Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yeah.
Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
Councillor Faulkner?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. 7.3.1 is the implementation of the new municipal website. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Communication Services dated March 15, 2021 regarding implementation of the new municipal website for information purposes. And I do believe I see the girl here is going to speak to us, Denise. Denise, just before you get started, I want to tell you something. I was on the website this morning looking at it. It's wonderful, and thank you for making me look 10 years younger. Laura.
Vicky, did you want to review anything first? Okay, you go first.
Yeah, that's okay. Sorry to throw you off key there, Your Worship. So I'll just do a brief overview and things. And Denise is here though to provide that visual presentation for you. So, as Council may recall, in 2020, the township did purchase approved an RFP for the new website and the implementation of the new website as part of the 2020 budget. The former website had become outdated and could not be updated, and there were components of it that were no longer functioning, and basically it wasn't interfacing well with some of our third-party applications as well. And then in addition to that, it was not meeting the AODA requirements, which we're required to meet very shortly. So the RFP was released and presented back to council. It was awarded to eSolutions of Waterloo, Ontario. And for the past 10 months, staff have been working with them to develop the new website. Staff are pleased to report that the new website was launched last Tuesday. It was a bit of a soft launch, and then we're working through some of the quirks and issues and things right now. So it's a little bit of a living, it's not really a document, but it's still being tweaked to meet our needs and things like that. And so again, we're working closely with eSolutions to address all these things. So over the course of the next 2 weeks, staff will be tweaking the website. We're looking for feedback from the public, other staff members, council regarding anything that they may find. It's a very large website in terms that I believe it, Denise may correct me, but I believe it's like 178 or 176 pages.
It is 196 pages.
Sorry, 196 pages,
196
because
pages.
it was growing, it was changing as we were going along through it. And plus there's, you know, we have to check broken links and broken links, check for broken links and links to documents, make sure the documents are there, make sure the forms are there and things. So we've certainly been working through that. Council's aware the website is a very important communication tool that municipalities use to engage with members of the public and to provide them with information on an ongoing basis regarding the activities of the township. So it is very important that we keep it up to date and that we keep it up to date, not only in terms of information, but in terms of updating the software or the website itself in terms of that. And, you know, we should probably be putting away some money away each year for its replacement in 7 to 10 years time frame. As everyone knows, as soon as you buy a piece of software or equipment, it's almost outdated as soon as it comes out. So just trying to, you know, meet the very fast changing, fast-paced digital world and changing in a changing environment. So as indicated in the report, the project relates directly to the goals in the strategic plan, and that the township was to update its digital processes, including the website and online payments, etc. As you can see, Denise is here with us this evening, and she's going to provide council with an overview of some of the enhanced functions and of the new website. So we hope that you enjoy what you're about to see and can be as excited as we are.
So I will just start by thanking you guys for taking the time to hear us out. Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. Sure. It's not going into my earbuds anymore, so that's fine. So very excited about this website, just because we've been trying and talking about this website for a very long time. So it's finally here. Again, there is some bugs, but nothing compared to what we were working with before. Our main goal for this website is engagement, to be user friendly, to be transparent, to get that information of any kind out to the community, Township of North Huron and surrounding areas. So that's our main focus and goal. So I just want to stay off the right from the start. The way I want staff is that if we have somebody calling in and saying there's a suggestion or a spelling mistake or something like that, we are actually taking their name and number and giving away a free month membership. I want this to be a positive experience. I want people to feel that they can call in and say, this really needs to be on the website, or that information's out of date. Did you know? We really want that to happen, or the website is going to be null and void before we even get up and started. Okay, so I just want to start with that. So Carson, if you can start the slides or start the website. So I didn't know if some of you had a chance to go to our new www.northhuron.ca. So that is the old website address, and it was switched over completely. So the old website isn't attainable if somebody is trying to search for new information. So that is a big plus on our end. So we're not having confusing information with old websites. You'll see along the top that there is 5 categories. Living here, that is really to get somebody that lives here already or is wanting to move here. A lot of information right quickly, everything to do with some municipal government issues, drainage, you can see different points there. Also, there is a page that was built and it was new to North Huron. So it actually goes, if you're moving here, how to pay your taxes, how to get hooked up with water, all that sorts of stuff. So it's supposed to be really user friendly. The next one is the Recreation, Parks and Culture. So that goes through all of our programming for the rec department. It also lists all of our parks and cultural experiences that you can have in North Huron. Part of our new big launch is actually we have new software that launched last week with our new website. So you can do online registration and find out all about our facilities at the exact same time. So it's absolutely perfect timing for all this to happen. The next one is Discover North Huron. And that is for people that are wanting to come here, parking, where to eat, where to stay, the business directory. The businesses directory is something I'll touch on a little bit later, and then we'll go to the next one. So build, invest, and grow. Again, so these are opportunities, doctor recruitment, economic development, things like that. So people can go in there and search different places for build, invest, and grow information. The next one's municipal government. So I'm actually going to come back to it, but it's also included on the website. So it's got all of our bylaws and bids and tenders and, you know, how to pay your property taxes. If you have a concern or if you have to report an issue, there's places to do that as well. And then the I want to button. So if you click onto that, Carson. So these main categories can be interchangeable. They don't have to stay like that. If there is, you know, pay your taxes is the biggest thing that's coming up, or if there's certain special events like, you know, grand openings of the Blythe Festival or the Muskrat Festival or things like that get back to normal, we can change these options, which is just great because then you can change it for all different seasons. So if you go down to the picture, of course, that is a bench that is down at our water. We did add a community of communities. I have to change the So there's little things like that, that if you notice, we can definitely tweak. But Bernie had said that years ago, and really it is the title of our webpage. It's Community of Communities, all our wards together, trying to make us known to the rest of the internet world. Along the bottom there is there are 6 quick links. So when you go into those quick links, it's really easy access to different areas of the website. So you have to understand that this is just the home page, but really it is an index page that can take you to all of the other 196 pages. So it can get a little overwhelming. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible to navigate. If you go down to the next 3 pictures, again, those are totally interchangeable. As of tomorrow, we're actually going to put the recreation online registration just because it's really big that week. We opened up today at the North Huron Westcast Community Complex, and online registration is something that we definitely want to promote for time saving. Over to the right, we have news and announcements. So right now I only have 2, but as of tomorrow, we're on the ball to make more news and notices, different job opportunities for the Township of North Huron. So just to keep people up to date as much as possible. So the next line down is our calendar of events. So the calendar events right now, you'll only see 2 events at the moment, but our goal is to have everything from wing night at the Legion to pie tasting at the Blythe United Church when we get into normal circumstances. Right now, there is some virtual activities that we want to include on the calendar. We just have to be very mindful that when we're doing these activities, they have to be COVID responsible, appropriate activities. This calendar also includes everything from council meetings to different openings. Like if there's a business opening downtown, we can put that in the calendar. So there's different categories. I'm just going to talk on another point. When this calendar is up and going, the Huron County is actually wanting to do a calendar for the whole county. This is a new project that they're trying to pull together. So we had a really exciting meeting, and they're also using eSolutions. So we can directly link and cross promote with all of Huron County activities, which is something I never even thought would have been possible when I first started this job. So that is the dream. It's not going to just get us out on our website, but it will get us out on the Huron County website. So that's huge. If you go down a little bit more, Carson. So the next 3 squares are more promotional areas. You'll see, our bridge, adult and senior activities, and parks and trails. Again, all of those are interchangeable. So say if we have a really important budget meeting coming up, we can dedicate, and it's all about real estate on this page on how to get people to navigate through the website as quickly as possible to get the information that they want. So it's so great that those are interchangeable. If you go down a little bit more, connect with us. So we've got our live Twitter page, our live Facebook page, and our YouTube page, which will be really awesome to promote just connecting with us, being able to be kept up to date. If people are wanting to post certain things, they can help us, educate others. So that's a really good one. And then down at the bottom is just some more layout and other locations other than the town hall, sorry. So that's it for the home page. I do want to go back to the municipal page. I'm trying not to take up a lot of time, but you know how I can get going when I'm passionate about something. So I'm really sorry, but really, I don't have to say a lot. This website speaks for itself. It is unbelievably, and it's been the best work project that I've ever done, even though it's been difficult some days and trying some days, but it's been absolutely awesome. So if you go to municipal government and then go down to the second row, council, you will see and meet our council. So there are pictures and descriptions of each. The layout has changed a couple times, but this is the most appealing one that I have. At least I need a new picture of Rick for sure, or Councillor McBurney, I'm sorry. And then there's different things down the side. So people can go, so if you go to council committees and board meetings, it has a whole list of the different boards, when their meetings are, and this is called an accordion. So if you press on any of the accordions, you'll see how it pops open to information. So we've got the most important headings right at the very top so people don't have to scroll, but when they actually open up an accordion, they'll get a lot more information. So we can fit a lot of information on this website. So if you go back up to the top, Carson, at the very top, there's 5 tabs. Can you get to, there we are. So A to Z services is it's kind of a searching tool. eSolutions says it's not used a lot, but it's still something that is used enough to still be there. Accessibility is just something that really has promoted this whole or led this whole project and our different reports. And then report a concern is where you can go quickly and report any kind of concern, you know, give staff a compliment if they, no, I'm just joking. And then if you go to contact us at the very end is how you contact us. So if you're saying to somebody, oh, I tried to get a hold of you, can you click on contact us and make it go live? Yeah, there we go. So it actually has it that all of our names are listed there. Phone numbers, say, yeah, if you can click on Bernie. So if you actually go underneath, it says email link. So because of hacking issues and different issues, they really encouraged us not to have your full email address on the website. So if you press on that link, it will actually take you to a place that can email to Bernie's email address without having the address available for outside bad guys, if that's a technical term. So that's kind of the start. I can show you so much more, but it's already 7:42 and I'm sure you don't want to hear anymore. But if you have any questions or concerns or thoughts, please let me know.
Denise, thank you very kindly. I'm going to wait for Carson to pop our screen. There we all are. I just want to say thank you very much, staff. I have waited for this. I have been bugging Dwayne for this, and I am extremely happy with this. It is fantastic. It is well worth waiting for. I'm going to open it up to council. Go ahead, Chris.
Through you, Reedy. Denise, yeah, good job. But just one question, all our phone numbers are the same.
That is
yeah,
discussion
yeah,
that you can have.
I thought they'd
put
be all Bernie's question, Bernie's phone number, but
well, Carson, I believe that would have to go to a motion and a vote, correct? So it's little things like that you know, it's easy to change. Honestly, it takes like 30 seconds to change that. I could do it while we're on here, but that's discussions that you really want to have. I didn't want to go live and that not be appropriate. I would rather change it later once you guys have decided on your forms of communication. So that is a discussion that you guys can have and just let me know. I just wanted to say one more thing. As a staff person of North Huron, I'm going to get personal for a second. This project was awesome, but I wouldn't have been able to do it without my supervisor. She has supported my crazy ideas. She has encouraged me to just go and do it. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Just before we go to you, Deputy Sype, I just want to say to Chris, I actually prefer the 3550 and the girls get a hold of me because I get about 1,000 phone calls a day between my own business and this. But as soon as the township of North Huron pops up, I get on the phone back to them and then I find out who it is and call them. It works out pretty good for me, actually. Okay, I'll open it up. Trevor, you were next.
Yes, thank you, Reed. This website, you know, can't. I don't know how to say it in the way that it will do it just. This website is a huge positive to this municipality. We in no way, shape, or form can live in a position where we have outdated information or information that doesn't bring us back to where we are. We are a municipality that has a ton of services. 198 pages isn't probably even adjust. The fact of the matter is, this, in order for us to be transparent with our taxpayer, this is the type of stuff that we need, and we need even more data on this. And this is where records management comes into play. And I think this is the type of stuff where, you know, you want to talk about counselors getting questions. Some of the stuff is the reason why counselors and deputy reeves and reeves get questioned is because it's not on the website. And yes, if you can get it on the website and in a fun format where people can actually find something,
right?
You know, that's the real part for me. Is this is a win? This is a huge win. It's a absolutely fabulous page. I floated around it today. You know, Is there things to change and things to tweak? Absolutely.
sure.
We wouldn't be in the right mind or technology if we weren't wanting to change something already. But this is a win. This is an absolute success story from this municipality. And Denise, thank you. Vicky, thank you. Thank you to staff. This is an absolute win for this municipality. So congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Vicky.
Your worship, I just want to make sure that, I say thank you to all staff. Because Denise and I did not write all that content and things. This was a unique opportunity for all staff to work together on it. And as much as in looking back at the year and thinking, oh, COVID was here, and we had office closures and people laid off, and thinking that we had time to do this. This was a huge undertaking, and COVID, no one actually knew how much time COVID was going to take of our time. If you talk to SNT, they'll tell you that. It certainly took up a lot of our time, especially with all the changes and things. So it was really a lot of stress and a lot of work on everyone to get it done. And that's why I said it's still kind of a living document. Denise and I have been going back and forth through it. There are things in there we know that needs to be fixed or tweaked or weren't quite finished yet and things, but it flows really well. We think the public's going to like it. That's why I said we need a couple more weeks to do it, but it has been a tremendous project, and all staff should be congratulated. Denise did a great job. When she came back, she took the bull by the horns and started, just kind of jumped in, with both feet, and took the bull by the horns and started to lead the project and go from there and stuff. There was just a lot going on and things. So I appreciate all the work she's done too, and appreciate all the work that staff did, because there's a lot of information in there.
Yeah, we couldn't have done it without them. Each department really wanted to say what they wanted on their pages. So yes, it was a process, but it wouldn't have happened without the whole team. And there wasn't one team member that, when it came down to it, didn't say, oh, Denise, forget it, I'm not doing it. Like, everybody was on board. They wanted it because they want that information accessible. It saves them phone calls. It saves them emails. So it's just such a great project.
And again, I just want to say, I think that's a comment when each department has their meetings. Feel free, senior management, feel free to pass on at least. I can't speak for the rest of council, but I'm speaking for myself. Absolutely, it's a tremendous job from everybody. It doesn't matter who led it. We all succeeded in this endeavor, so it's a great job overall.
Sure.
Thank you kindly. Any other council members? Well, not seeing any.
Can I just say one more thing? Yeah. The only other follow-up is that the business directory is something that actually, I'm so sorry I missed it. I'll be going to the Wingham BIA and the Blythe BIA. Last year, they sent us a whole list of the businesses, and we have uploaded. But the thing is a business can actually go onto the website, have their own login, and they actually look after their portion. So they can promote different sales. They can promote if they've changed the name of their business or how to contact them. They have that interaction, so they feel some ownership of it. And it's not just for the Wingham BIA and the Blythe BIA. This is an inclusive business directory that is up and above the BIAs to include every business in our township. I just wanted to make that clear.
It's just amazing. Go ahead, Vicky.
Sorry, I love the business directory part of it too. I was hoping Denise was going to touch on it and things, because when you call it up, like, they have the opportunity to take a photo of their store. There's they can put in, a map of their location and directions to get there. And it's just very interactive. You could search for different things, and it's just, we need the businesses to, put the photos on there and keep their information updated. It will be updated or maintained by the businesses themselves, but
but it's an opportunity for them to showcase themselves and talk about themselves, have a little write up about what they're about and things. And it's a pretty cool business directory, I think, anyway. And at least from we saw it on another municipal, we had a choice of different business directories and things, and the SMT group that was looking at, we really liked this one. We thought it was great. So we hope the businesses like it.
Thank you very kindly. I just want to add in there that I'm really happy with this site. I'm really happy that everybody works so hard on it. We have, in the last 2 years, had a lot of stories to tell. Everybody likes to talk about the time you fell, but you don't often get many times to tell people about how you got back up off your knees. But I want to say with this site, we're going to be able to tell the story of the mighty North, because we are rising and this council is making a difference. And I'm so proud of you guys. So let's journey on. Having said that, before I get on,
Rafe,
go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Just wanted to, I just thought of it. Will multiple staff know how to upload into this?
I'm seeing yes.
So there is
Okay.
there is a process. So what happens is permissions were given for certain pages. So each senior management is the manager of their department. So Donna White is, I'm just using you, Donna, as an example, the charge of the finance department. Her and Donna Stute work on their pages. If there's something that is kind of out of their realm of training or they haven't done it in a long time, I'm here to help. Usually what would take them an hour a year from now to do might take me 5 minutes because I've been doing constantly for the year. So it's an ongoing project and I don't mind working with each department. So, but there is multiple ways to update the information. Olivia has done so much work. She really has stepped up to the plate and done an amazing job. So I'll just put that out there. But again, she can't get the information without Carson and Dwayne, and it's a whole different circle of approvals and what the information goes on. But we're all aware on if we can't do something, there are other people that can do it.
Okay, thank you. So I don't see any further questions, so I'm going to call for movers. 7.3.1, implementation of the new municipal website that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives. A report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated March 15th, 2021, regarding implementation of the new municipal website for information purposes. Do I have a mover? I have Paul Heffer moving. I have Kevin Faulkner seconding. And I'm going to hand it over to Carson now.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, Councillor Palmer. Councillor McBurney. Councillor McBurney, you're muted. There you go. Deputy Reeve Sight.
Yes.
Councillor Faulkner.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson.
Yes.
And Rafe Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very kindly. Thank you, staff, for this. We appreciate it as councilors. We really do. Okay, we're going to move on to Public Works and Facilities, 7.4.1, the Wingham Armories demolition. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated March 15th, 2021 regarding the Armories demolition proposal for information. And further, the Council agrees to receive the confidential components of this report in closed sessions at the March 15th, 2021 regular Council meeting prior to providing direction to staff on the future of this property. So I'm going to ask for a mover and seconder. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin Faulkner moving. I have Paul Heffer seconding. And then my understanding, Carson, is then we'll talk about this in camera.
So to answer your question, Your Worship, so there's components of this report that can be presented in open session. The Director of Public Works, if you want to turn it over to her, she'll present those open session components. And then basically, once those open session components have been presented, when we get to the closed session section of this agenda, she will continue on that presentation of the information supplied in confidence to the township. And then following that, once council has both the open and closed components, council can come out of closed session and make a decision on how to proceed. So at this time, it would certainly be prudent to turn it over to the Director of Public Works.
Vicky, I think it's your turn. No, sorry.
Amy.
Jamie.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey.
Thank you.
So throughout the past year, there's been various reports presented to council from staff seeking direction regarding the future of the Armories building. Previous reports identified the Wingham Armories as being in fair to good condition, although it requiring significant investment to meet current standards. These investments would also be cost prohibitive to the township. The most recent report has been attached for ease, and at the November 2nd, 2020 regular meeting of council, the following motion was passed. That is in the report, and to summarize that, council directed staff to remove the heritage designation, to conduct a destructive substance investigation, and to complete a RFP for the demolition of the Armories building. During the March 1st, 2021 meeting and in closed session, council received and discussed a written offer to purchase the Armories property. For confidentiality reasons, the name of the potential purchaser, offer price, and/or terms and conditions cannot be disclosed. After the closed session discussion, council requested additional information. So the purpose of my report is to provide that additional information. The RFP was put out to the industry on February 17th and it closed on March 8th. The RFP was issued to provide council with additional information and was structured with provisional options that incorporated removal of the foundation of the building and rehabilitation of the area. The purpose of this approach was to provide broader options for council to discuss regarding the future of the Armories building. A total of 3 companies submitted proposals, and all 3 proposals submitted included all of the required documentation from those contractors. The attached table has been provided to show the RFP bids for reference. The low bidder is a qualified contractor with decades of demolition experience in Southwestern Ontario. Potential bidders were provided with the documentations such as the destructive investigation and the building condition assessment reports, so that they could have a full scope of everything that required from the removal of the Armories building. So with option 1, that was in the RFP, was to demolish the building, abate all of the hazardous materials, removal of any building contents, and also remove the concrete footings and ramps, as well as hauling those off-site. Demolition of the basement, which is also called the miniature firing range, would occur with the concrete being left in the ground. All areas that were disturbed will be backfilled and graded and prepared for future paving. The lowest bid for this option was $84,000. With option 2, this option encompasses abatement of all hazardous materials, removal of the building contents, and demolition of the Armories building, breaking of footings and ramps and basement just below subgrade depth, which would then be backfilled and prepared for future paving. And this was estimated at $86,000. Option 3 would be to do the same as the other two options, where it was removal of the building, abatement of the hazardous material. But in this option, it would be removal of all concrete, such as the basement and footings, ramps, anything. And this low bid was $94,000. There was also a provisional item included for final asphalt paving. This was 17,000 above each of those other bid options. So to assist in providing possible future uses of the site for council's consideration, the RFP was structured to assist in making a formal decision regarding future uses of the property. So a parking lot versus a residential development. Future plans for the property need to be considered as part of the rehabilitation process. For example, all three options involve backfilling the disturbed area. Ground improvement techniques to prepare the property for future development would include removing unsuitable soils and replacing them with engineered fill. Successful placement of engineered fill requires proper equipment and techniques, suitable materials, and testing to verify proper compaction. If council is desirous of having a building constructed on the property, engineered fill and geotechnical testing is recommended. This would be able to take place with any of the options above, but more so with option 3. And that additional would be able to be taken from reserves. Options 1 and 2 would restrict the possible uses for future activities for the lot, as leaving some of the concrete or all of the concrete below subgrade would not be able to or hinder the possibility of moving forward with other items for that lot. We would also need to move forward with environmental studies for the property, which staff did not do previously, as the direction was to demolish the building. This would be in the $50,000 range for environmental studies. Some potential possibilities for future use could be the expansion of the administrative building, which may provide a lower cost option to consider that meets accessibility, efficiency, and space and solves space issues, as there's very limited space within the town hall building. North Huron could also sell the property for future commercial use, demolish and retain the property for additional parking with electrical charging stations added. And if we were to move forward with the environmental studies, we could also do residential development meeting those higher sensitivity criteria. So the financial impacts, currently there is $106,000 budgeted for the demolition process and the electrical separation between the Armories building and Town Hall. Depending on the options chosen, there would need to be the need to go into the reserve, into a reserves budget to acquire a little bit of additional money in order to proceed with any of the options above. So I will pause there so that there can be a discussion. And if I can answer anything, please let me know.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Okay, I'm going to open it up to council to discuss on this part of it, and I'm going to send it over to Deputy Reeve Sipes first.
Yes, thanks, Reeve. Jamie, my question through you, Reeve, is if the municipality wanted to use that building to extend the administration building, would an environmental assessment need to be completed?
Through Reeve Bailey to Deputy Reeve Sipe, no, that wouldn't be required. It's when the uses of the site are altered to a more sensitive use. So if we're going to continue to use it as a community facility, which is what it's zoned at right now, there would be no need to proceed with environmental studies for that.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from council? Not seeing anything at this moment. Carson, with your help now, do I get a vote on this, or are we going to in camera first?
So to answer your question, your worship, so you have a motion on the floor. So if that passes, basically when we get to agenda item 14, we would go into closed to discuss this matter. And then following that closed session discussion, council would report out and a motion would be passed based on once council has all the information in front of them.
Thank you very kindly. Since I have a mover and a seconder, I'm going to hand it over to you to call the vote then.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated March 15th, 2020 regarding the Armory's demolition proposal for information, and further that council agrees to receive the confidential components of this report in closed session at the March 15th, 2021 regular council meeting prior to providing direction to staff on the future use of the property. So Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer, sorry?
Yes.
Councillor Van Henderson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. 7.4.2 is the 2021-06 Blythe GDG Trail lease extension and agreement. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Public Works dated March 15th, 2021 regarding an extension of a lease agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of the Government of Consumer Services for a portion of the former abandoned Guelph to Godrich rail line for information. And further, the council agrees to enter into an extension of lease agreement for the portion of the former abandoned Guelph to Godrich rail trail. And further, that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby deems an extension of lease agreement between Her Majesty the Queen in right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Government and Consumer Services and the Township of North Huron to be a time-sensitive and administrative matter, and grants an exception to section 19.1 of the Township Procedural Bylaw to allow bylaw number 22-2021 to be adopted at the March 15th, 2021 regular council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin Faulkner moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Deputy Reeve Sight seconding. Okay, I'm going to open it up to council questions or comments. Oh, sorry, I got to look up. Anybody have any questions or comments? Not seeing any. I'm going to hand it over to Carson. Carson, it's your turn.
Thank you, Your Worship. So you've read the motion, so this will be a recorded vote. So Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer? Councillor Falconer, I just didn't.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer? Councillor Van Henderson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
7.4.3, the management of the airport woodlot, that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the Director of Public Works dated March 15th, 2021 regarding management of the airport woodlot for information. And further, the council authorizes GWG Resources Services to proceed with the development and implementation of a woodlot management plan for the Richard Levan Airport property. And further, the council directs the Director of Finance to put the net proceeds of the woodlot harvest into the airport reserves. Do I have a mover? I have Paul Hefner moving. I have Chris Palmer seconding. I'm going to hand this over to, again, I think it's going to be I'm just having a terrible time with names.
Jamie.
Jamie, right there in front of me. Sorry, Jamie.
It's all right. Thank you, Bailey. It's getting late. It's fine.
The picture's coming up.
Thank you. So in the summer of 2019, the former Director of Public Works consulted with Dave Pullen, Forest Conservation Officer for the County of Huron, Mr. Pullen performed an audit that summer and strongly recommended that the woodlot be harvested in 2021. Staff have engaged the services of a forester in marking the 25.7 acre woodlot on the Richard Levan Airport property. The forester is employed by GWG Resources Services and is a member of the Ontario Professional Foresters Association. GWG Resources Services will provide management services, including and facilitating the tender process for the woodlot harvest. The process involves the following. A forester creates a silvicultural prescription for, I don't know if I pronounced that properly, I'm sorry, for the woodlot and marks trees to be removed using good forestry management practices. The forester tends harvesting of the woodlot to assess what buyers, vendors are willing to pay for the lumber harvested. The forester awards harvesting of the woodlot and specifies the harvesting conditions, insurance requirements. And finally, the forester remits to the property owner, the township, the net proceeds resulting from the harvest. The net proceeds are calculated by deducting costs associated with marketing, tendering, and harvesting from the total value of the lumber. As part of their services, GWG Resources will undertake to obtain all necessary permits and satisfy the county's reporting requirements. The woodlot at the airport has not been logged for approximately 15 years. Knowledgeable foresters recommend the harvest to be completed this year. There have been noted that there are pockets of good quality trees, and harvesting will assist in removing trees that are starting to show decline. Trees are declining due to ash yellows, damage from the emerald ash borer, as well as damage caused by beech bark disease and cankers. So the financial impact is there's no negative financial impacts, and then anything that is sold and harvested will be placed into the airport reserves. So you're welcome.
Sorry. Did you have more to say? I apologize.
No, I was just going to say I'm going to stop there, and then if there's any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Well, let's find out. Are there any questions for Jamie? Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, Shreve, Bailey, thank you. Jamie, this is more of a question as it relates to, obviously, harvesting is good, I'm guessing is good practice. Obviously, you want to get the notable damaged trees and stuff out of there. Is part of this process, is anywhere in this discussion about replacement, like putting new trees in that same area? Like, I guess my question is if you continually harvest it, at some point there will never be any trees there. So is there a conversation as it relates to this as to replacement of trees somewhere in this forest, or is it just harvesting?
That's a really good question, and I'm not too sure. So I can talk to the Dave Pullen to kind of go through and see that what planting would look like. I know that there is some we do need to take care of some of the trees that are so close to the airport, but as far as that other stuff goes, I'm not sure.
Thank you very much, Jamie. I'm going to hand it over to Anita first and then over to Chris Palmer second.
Yeah, this is a little bit in answer to Deputy Reeve Sipes' comments. It's natural for forests to be cleaned up every about 15 years. The forest will get more air and more light, and the little trees that are already there can grow better. So there's no need for reforestation, only when you have to cut a lot of trees, but or whole areas then you need to do reforestation. Normally it's not necessary. It's a natural process in the forest that trees come up by themselves there.
Thank you
very much, Councillor
Henderson. Yep. And now Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, Anita answered it, but basically the GWG, any forester manages, so that's what you got to think of. They're managing the forest like any other management of anything, and yeah, you don't take all the trees out. You don't take all the good ones out either. They often leave some good ones for birds and different things like that. So yeah, have confidence that the bush will be managed properly.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Anyone else? Not seeing anyone. I'm going to hand it over to Carson for the vote.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Public Works dated March 15th, 2021 regarding management of the airport woodlot for information. And further, that Council authorizes GWG Resources Services to proceed with the development and implementation of a woodlot management plan for the Richard Levan Airport property. And further, that Council directs the Director of Finance to put the net proceeds from the woodlot harvest into the airport reserves. So Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very kindly. 7.4.4, surplus and sale of airport property. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive the report from the Director of Public Works dated March 15th, 2021 regarding airport operations and information. And further, that the staff be directed to sever the 77 acres of the airport property along with the additional 15-acre parcel, a combined total of 92 acres, and obtain an appraisal for the severed lands. And further, that the staff be directed to retain an agricultural lands. And further, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby declare the severed 92 land area of airport property as surplus to the needs of the municipality. And further, that the Council authorizes staff to proceed with the disposal of the 92-acre area of airport property through the direct advertisement method and with the assistance of a professional agency. And further, that the Council authorizes staff to negotiate terms and conditions with potential offers with the assistance of the professional agency to obtain the best purchase and sale agreement for Council to consider. And further, the Council directs the staff to prepare a report for the future meeting to detail and all offers and expressions of interest received for Council's consideration. And further, the Council directs staff to prepare a report for Council's consideration for the agricultural lands. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin Faulkner moving and Chris Palmer seconding. Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand it over to Carson to speak to, I think.
It'll actually be Jamie, Your Worship.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jamie. I'm just ignoring you tonight for some unknown reason. What is this all about? You go, girl.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. So the Richard W. Levan Airport includes a total of 448 acres of property comprised of 77 acres of airport operations and 234.49 acres of agricultural lands that are rented out annually, and as well as the 136.58 acres of woodlot. During a special meeting of Council on October 22nd, 2020, KPMG presented the findings of their service delivery review report. Among many recommendations, KPMG noted the airport is municipally owned and operated and serves a limited population. The number of North Huron residents served by the airport is very limited, and equally, the number of non-Huron residents served by the airport is also very limited. In 2020, the facility had 5 recorded aircraft visits, excluding Apex helicopter activity. It is acknowledged that this low activity is partially due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Over the last 3 years, the average number of aircraft visits to the airport is around 20. The facility also has an estimated additional 2,600 movements per annual by the air cadets. In 2020, there was none due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Further, the KPMG report states that the that airports are a discretionary service and that there is no requirement to provide this service. The report highlights that many municipalities of similar size do not provide this service. The report also notes that the airport is in relatively good shape, and KPMG recommended council either invest in the airport or divest of its future liability. After a lengthy discussion, there was the following motion was carried. And just summarizing the motion, it was that council directs staff to proceed with the process of declaring the airport proper portion of the Richard W. Levan Airport lands as surplus for the purpose of divesting of the asset. So the purpose of this report is to seek council's approval regarding the method to dispose of the airport lands. In early January, and as directed by council, staff proceeded with investigations to appropriately sever the airport from the remaining agricultural and woodlot lands. Staff reached to explore solutions for assistance. More specifically, staff requested assistance with determining an appropriate area of land to sever to ensure airport operations at the Richard Levan Airport. As a reminder, Explore Solutions completed a feasibility study for the Richard Levan and Goderich airports in 2018. They are very knowledgeable and familiar with the Richard Levan Airport. As per the recommendations, they, and following Transport Canada's TP 312 5th edition rules and regulations, they recommended that the township move forward with severing the 77 acres plus 15 additional acres of agricultural land, which would comprise of 92 acres for future airport activity. They also did mention that another suggestion could be to sell the entire property as one parcel. At this time, staff have not received any inquiries or interest for this type of sale. If a purchaser was interested in purchasing the entire property, it is suggested they could indicate this at the time of making an offer on the 92 acres. If that was the case, staff would provide all information to council and seek direction as to how council wishes to proceed. Inquiries to date have not been for portions of the property. Unless council directs otherwise, staff will proceed with severing approximately 92 acres of airport operations and obtain a written appraisal for these lands. Due to the specialized nature of disposing of this asset, it is recommended that staff be authorized to issue an RFP seeking a third-party agent to work with staff for the sale of the aviation lands. Staff would be looking for a company that is familiar with these types of sales and a company that would strive to facilitate a sale based on the municipality's desired outcome. As council is aware, there is a contractual obligation to address the hangar property leases. These obligations may impart significant costs to the process. Below are the sections of the hangar lease agreements, which outline if the township does terminate the lease agreements. If the hangar owners wish to continue operating at the airport, it is possible to transfer these leases, and it is possible to transfer these lease agreements, and they can be incorporated into a sales agreement with the future owner. If the hangar owners wish not to continue operating at the airport, it is advisable to seek legal advice as to the township's contractual obligations. Further, as council is aware, Orange services benefit the community. As part of the sale, it is recommended council ensure continuation of Orange services at the airport if possible. In order to provide a fully inclusive purchase and sale with all obligations met, it is recommended that staff be directed to provide communication to all hang leaseholders in accordance with the township's sale and disposition policy. The department heads have no interest in the subject lands and recommend the lands be declared surplus. It is also recommended the airport and reserve lands, the 92-acre lands, be declared surplus to the municipality's needs, and staff be authorized to proceed with the direct advertising method to dispose of the property. Once council has reviewed all offers and staff have negotiated key terms and conditions of the disposition as directed by council, a staff report will be brought forward to council seeking authorization to sign a purchase and sale agreement. At this time, it is recommended that the remaining agriculture and woodlot lands not be declared surplus to North Huron's needs, and staff be directed to present a report at a future meeting with additional information for council's consideration. So I will pause there for questions or any comments, and thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. We're going to open up to the floor now for council. Councillor Palmer's first. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Through you, Reeve, Jamie, and this is for everyone to think about. If this passes, would not our next move be to get permission from Morris Turnberry? Is that required?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
I think I'll touch on that one a bit, and if I go astray, one of the staff can come in and assist me. But no, it is in Morris Turnberry Township. I believe we do pay taxes to Morris Turnberry for it. As part of the cross-border negotiations, we offered to, we asked them if they would consider a land swap, and we would, since we own the 470 acres, and we would take it in lieu of finances towards supplying them with water and sewer. And the answer was no. So I look at it from a few different points of view. That's one. The other one is here we are in Morris Turnberry, bothering Morris Turnberry and kind of in their territory, when really the airport should belong to Morris Turnberry because it's in Morris Turnberry and they should be financially running and taking care of it, not North Huron. So how that ever came about, I don't know. So the other thing would be, I believe in the last council meeting, and maybe Mr. Sipes can help me, but our council, not our council, that council asked for air protection so that the planes could land and take off, and nobody could build a silo right in front of the airport on the personal land owned either side of it. And Morris Turnberry never gave us that permission, so we don't even have permission for that. And again, nobody in North Huron uses the airport, hasn't for quite some time. So there's just a whole field of reasons that we should be unloading it. You know, we were truly hoping that it would become part of North Huron, but we can't seem to make an agreement on anything. So I will hand it over to the staff if they can follow up on that. Trevor Sykes is going to speak first. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, to answer, in all honesty, to answer Councillor Palmer's question is, we own it. We have the right to do whatever we want with it. The municipality in which it's owned or land is where it is doesn't have any requirement to provide acceptance on us selling that piece of property. So any property, any declaring of surplus or anything like that, we declare. We haven't sold anything yet. We're just looking at offers for that. Morris Turnberry doesn't need to give us permission to do that. We own the piece of property in order to do such things. So the one question that I did have to Jamie is, there is a part in here in the financial report as to airport investigation and study. I gotta say, this airport has had 75 studies and facilities and other things done to it. I can't even believe that we would need that $6,000. Like we've had, I know there is some people that wouldn't agree with some of the studies, but and some of the studies aren't necessarily what we are expecting, but I don't see that we, like, if we're divesting ourselves of that in order to sell it, you know, there is enough studies in my mind that we have that we could more than happy give it to a potential purchaser and say, here, if you want to look at these studies, go right ahead. But I don't see us spending $6,000 more of taxpayer money on a study that we have already had 7 studies, and we've even had a study in the last 4 years. So I don't see how it's changed, and that's only my comment. So I don't think I would investigate any or do any study if it requires external studying of or investigation.
I'm going to hand it over to Anita now.
Yes, I have a question about the severance. This is only for severance for the airport. What is happening with the woodlot beside it? Does it stay with the agricultural land, or how does that work?
So through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Van Hittersum, the woodlots would stay with the agricultural lands. The only additional area that would be required, and that it's more for the airport to be looked at by a bigger, I guess, for lack of better words, airport community, so that way there's that extra 15-acre parcel of land attached to the airport where somebody could build more hangars or whatever else they could do to provide a better business model for themselves along with that airport. And does that help answer that question?
Helps a little bit, but there's still a little part of agricultural north of the airport on the left side. What's going to happen with that? Because then you have problems reaching that little piece of land there. Or does that belong to somebody else? You know what I mean?
Do you mean the area with on the photo with the blue?
No, above that, north of that. It looks like it's part of the agricultural land, but it's all divided now because the land of the airport is bigger. There's no way to access that land for agricultural purposes. Do you know what I mean? It's a really weird shape now, and you can't get there.
My apologies. Is it between the two, just below the two commercial properties off of the highway?
Yeah.
And the airport?
Yeah.
Jamie, did you want me to share my screen?
Oh, sure, that'd be great.
The airport has an upside down T shape, and I'm talking about on the left side, and then there's a couple of acres of agricultural land that has no yellow, nothing with it, and it's by the way the airport is shaped right now. How are you going to get by that land? And it's really a weird shape there.
Okay, so if I'm seeing the correct area, then it doesn't belong to North Huron. It belongs to, as far as the GIS that I have, the township does not own anything that's not within that yellow boundary.
Okay, so they wouldn't have any problem accessing because it looks like it's used as one field, but that's okay then. There will still be access.
I'm not sure what
field.
My apologies. I'm not sure what agreement the current owner of that parcel has with a farmer or whomever, but anything that's not in the yellow boundaries, and I know the woodlot hasn't been incorporated into that boundary. This is just the agricultural lands currently that's shown. That area up there north of the airport, between the highway and that blue box, does not belong to the Township of North Huron.
Okay.
Are we okay with that, Anita?
Yeah, well, I find it weird that somebody will give permission to sever it off like that. There's obviously use of that agricultural land by somebody. I don't know how they want to do that, but okay.
Maybe Jamie, you could maybe get a hold of Anita later, just make sure we're talking about the same amount of land. Check that out before we get ourselves in a bind. Well, no, we're gonna pass it tonight.
Yes, for sure. I'll send all the information I have.
Okay, thank you. Chris, you were next.
Yeah, I'm not satisfied yet, and it's for the sake of all of us. Technically speaking, anybody can wish to sever anything they want, but they still need permission from the residing township. And I'm trying to protect us. That's all I'm trying to do, is alert us to we have this issue, I believe. Like I'm all for this severance. Don't get me wrong, if we can do it. But technically, I think it has to go back to the township that it belongs in, like it resides in. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Kirk, are you on the line?
Sorry, Reeve.
Yes, I am.
Just Kirk, could you just speak to that? I think Chris's concern is if we sever off the airport from the rest of the 400 acres, are we going to run into a no, you can't do that from Morris Turnberry? Can you just answer that one?
I can't answer that directly, but what I can say is that staff do comment on all severances that take place in our township. So if there's a severance that takes place in Morris Turnberry, I comment on it from the building department.
Okay, yeah. Do you from the department see a problem with this? Without putting you on the spot. Okay, totally.
Yeah, I am on the spot. I haven't seen much of this.
Don't answer that. So. It's fine. Don't answer that. It's fine.
Okay.
That's not.
I would hope. I would
Okay.
hope that the township wouldn't have any issues. You know.
Yeah. Well, you know something. I'm just going to speak up and say that it is in Morris Turnberry. And we have asked them if we could have it, and they've said no. They have the ability to buy it if they want to keep it as an airport. They have the ability to buy it and the agricultural land if they want to keep it as an airport. They can put their staff out there, pay the insurance, the upkeep, and whatever it costs to replace everything that needs to be replaced all the time. It's no different than the trailer park. The trailer park down by the Legion started out with a gentleman coming forward and say he wanted to buy it and run it as a trailer park. That's how we started the conversation of selling the trailer park. He disappeared. He's nowhere to be found now. But we went ahead and did it anyway, and it worked out for the Legion and ourselves. This is no different. We're disposing of a piece of land that North Huron does not need. Yep, go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sipe.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is I apologize to Councillor Palmer. I think when I was talking, you were thinking about, I was thinking that you were thinking we have to get permission to actually sell the piece of property. What you're actually is wondering is that we need to get approval to sever it. And,
yes.
And again, I think the question's going to happen in any severance package. Is it's going to get sent out to the, it's going to be requested for severance, and no different than we just did one tonight for the town in Blythe, or for the people in Blythe. It's going to get done. And then there's going to be comments and questions, and Morris Turnberry Council is going to have to approve or deny it, or whatever the case may be. And if that is the case, then we will deal with that process when we get to that process. But this is what we're asking. This is what we think is in the best interest of North Huron. So I think ultimately we're just asking for something that we already want. If they don't agree with it, then they will have to provide us with some argument of why they won't sever it, or why they will do it, and then we can work through that discussion as we see. But I do want to apologize to you, Councilor Palmer, because I think I did talk something that wasn't actually what you were asking, so I apologize.
Okay.
So guys, at the end of the day, we really want to sell it all. So maybe somebody will come by and want to buy the whole thing as a parcel, and it'll all be done. Okay. Do I have any more questions, comments, or concerns from council? Okay, not seeing any. I do believe I have movers, so I'm going to hand it over to Carson for the roll call.
Thank you, your worship. So the motion on the floor is that the council of the township of North Huron hereby receive the report of the Director of Public Works dated March 15th, 2021 regarding airport operations for information, and further that staff be directed to sever the 77 acres of airport property along with an additional 15-acre parcel, a combined total of 92 acres, and obtain an appraisal for the severed lands, and further that staff be directed to retain the agricultural lands, and further that the council of the township of North Huron hereby declares the severed 92-acre area of airport property as surplus to the needs of the municipality, and further that council authorizes staff to proceed with the disposal of the 92-acre area of airport property through the direct advertising method and with the assistance of a professional agency, and further that council authorizes staff to negotiate terms and conditions of potential offers with the assistance of a professional agency to obtain the best purchase and sale agreement for council to consider, and further that council directs staff to prepare a report for a future meeting detailing all offers and expressions of interest received for council's consideration, and further that council directs staff to prepare a report for council's consideration for the agricultural lands. So Councillor Faulkner,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson,
No, and can I give an explanation or not? Because I think it is too early to do to start negotiating. I think we have to do the severance first before we can move on, but I'm not sure if that's true or not.
so your comments are noted. So Councillor Palmer,
Yeah.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-1 with the no being Councillor Van Hitterson.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Fire Department, 7.5.1, Fire Dispatch Agreement with Owen Sound Police Services. Follow-up report that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Fire Chief dated March 15th, 2021 regarding renewal of the Fire Dispatch Agreement. And further that the Council approves the renewal of the Dispatch Service Agreement with Owen Sound Police Services as presented. And further, the Council adopts bylaw number 20-2021 being a bylaw to enter into Owen Sound Police Services for Fire Dispatch Services. I'm going to get a mover and seconder, and then I'm going to ask Marty to speak to it. Okay, mover. I have Paul moving. I have Kevin seconding. Okay. Did you want to speak to this, Marty, or was it
Sure.
really not?
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Just very quickly, as noted in my report, there was a call made to Owen Sound, and the two reasons for the extra time was bell notification requirements of 6 months and the staffing commitments that that they must meet. It's also important to note that if it was the other way around, that it certainly would take us a fair bit of time to find a new dispatch agency as well. So it works kind of both ways on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Questions from the councilors? Not seeing any. I'm going to hand it over to Carson.
Thank you, your worship. So Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer. So it looks like Councillor Palmer's absent right now. So Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey. So I'll just do one more call for Councillor Palmer here. So not hearing Councillor Palmer, so that motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. There is no building report. There's no childcare report. There's no CAO report tonight. Correspondence 8.1, Canadian Union of Postal Workers, a request for support for delivery of community power, delivering community power. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to send a letter endorsing delivering community power to Anita Admin, Minister of Public Services and Procurement with a copy to Jan Simpson, President, Canadian Union of Postal Workers. Do I have a mover? Not seeing a mover. That one's just going to go down for information then. Also on 8.2, Dave Tiffin, Chair of the Wingham BIA, appointment of Wingham BIA boards, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the new appointments for the Wingham BIA board as set out in the letter from Dave Tiffin, Wingham BIA Chair, dated February 26, 2021. And further, that bylaw number 25, 2019, being a committee appointment bylaw, be amended to reflect the new Wingham BIA board appointments. Do I have a mover? I have Paul Hepper moving. I have Trevor Sipes seconding. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Anybody want to comment? Not seeing anybody. I'm going to give it over to Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Okay. 8.3, Dave Sparling, Chair of Blythe BIA, appointment of BIA board members. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the new appointments for the Blythe BIA board as set out in the letter from Dave Sparling, Blythe BIA Chair, dated March 5th, 2021. And further, the bylaw 25-2019 being a committee appointment bylaw, be amended to reflect the new Blythe BIA board appointments. Do I have a mover? I have Mr. Falconer first and Mr. McBurney second. Sorry, gentlemen. Questions, comments, or concerns from council? Not seeing any. Carson, it's yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes,
So that motion carries 7-0.
that's great. So now we're going to go down to council reports, the Reeves activity report. I just wanted to comment. I had written down the new website. I think it's fantastic. I think it puts us in a different league altogether compared to the one that we were dragging around before. We're dragging too many chains, so that one's gone, and I'm excited to move forward with it. One of the things I would like to talk about is we had our first inoculation at the arena. And I would just like to thank Dave Clark from the county for setting it up. Dave did a tremendous job. I'd like to thank all the volunteers that came in. I would like to thank the staff. They did such a great job, and the counselors that got a chance to help. We will not be having another one in Wingham for quite some time, but I just want to read a few things that Dave Clark from the county, the head emergency coordinator person, wrote to me. And this is for the clinic. We saw 366 vaccinations. The overwhelming response from people on exiting was they were amazed at how efficient everything was and that it was such a breeze. My sincere thanks to Vicki and Larry for all the staff of North Huron that assisted in setting everything up, and my compliments to yourself and the counselors that had the chance to help us. Once again, North Huron really stepped up, and I'm very much appreciative of the support. And this again is the North is starting to rise. You're going to hear me say that a lot. The mighty North is starting to rise. We're all doing a great job. My hat's off to everybody that got involved. It was amazing to watch that happen. We even had people coming in from Grand Bend, 80 years of age, made the trip here so they could get it done. And it was kind of funny because, personal story, in the morning I was out at Morris Turnberry doing some work and sat down at the ladies' table, and we talked about the cross-border disagreements. And in the afternoon, I helped her into the clinic and showed her where to go. So it's just a small world we live in, isn't it? So both were very good visits, by the way. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Council reports, these are reports from anybody that sits on a board or a committee. Has anybody got anything like to update us on? Go ahead, Trevor.
Yes, Reeve, thank you. So I just wanted to update council on the Community Connectors Group has continued to discuss virtually over the past due to COVID. They have a number of initiatives that they're working on. One was supportive by Denise and the township staff as it relates to newcomers to North Huron. And it started off as a newcomers to Wingham, but it has blossomed into newcomers to North Huron as it relates to potentially making welcome bags and stuff like that, as to information that people, newcomers, could come as that we could have at potential real estate agents or other locations within the municipality that has been talked about. So I'm coordinating that with the group from the Wingham Community Connectors Group. I've had some conversations with real estate agents in the municipality. I'm going to be having some more as it relates to some of the other individuals who may be willing to support some options about having these bags available when these bags are available. I know this group is working hard in order to establish that. At this point, the community connectors are just looking at getting a magnet that basically tells them locations of where they could potentially get some of this information. So that's ongoing. I did want to talk to you that I am going to be talking with actually Reeve Bailey. I'm actually going to be talking with your spouse at the public school as it relates to their umbrellas project, because I think it's an absolute great project that they are doing, and I think it would be important. The community connectors have had a couple of meetings with this town, with the public school, as well as some kids in the public school, about talking about their umbrella project and mental health. And I think it would be interesting for that information to come to council, so that council can be involved as to how mental health has become a significant part of our society in today's pandemic. So I will be reaching out to. I am going to be reaching out to Angela Cowley from the public school as it relates to that umbrella project, and hopefully we can get some information to council as it relates to that project, because I think it's an excellent thing.
Thank you very kindly, Deputy Reeve Sipes. Councillor Hepper.
Reeve, yes. Just on the museum committee met again. They're having another meeting coming up, and they're just working on the draft presentation to council. So that's about all. They just had raising funds and that type of things at the last meeting, and so there'll be some touching up to do with that and whatnot. But they're getting ready for the presentation. So I'll leave it with that. And also, yes, at the vaccination committee, or at the complex there, that went really, really smooth, and a lot of the older people were very happy with how smooth it went for them. It just, from the start right in, not real busy, but it just flowed so smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hepper. Anybody else? Go ahead, Chris. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Paul told me in confidence when he was helping the 80-year-olds get their shots, he stuck his arm out every time too, but it didn't work.
Thank you.
You look too young. Okay. Not seeing any more reports. We're going to go down to just comments by members. Any comments, anything circulating around you'd like to talk about? Yeah, I'm just gonna touch on one that don't know why I keep forgetting to mention, but the no, I'm not going to, apparently. Can't think of what it's called. I don't know what's wrong with me tonight. I can't think 5 minutes in a row. Economic Development Recovery Team. I wonder if we should maybe get some comments from the maybe at the next council meeting. on what's going on with them because they are working hard. There's a lot on the go. And I'll try to remember to talk on their behalf, or maybe Kevin, maybe you can jump up there, or Anita. Okay, having said that, I won't ramble on. Let's go to comments by members. Any comments? Not seeing any. Notice of motion request from Councillor Van Hittersum that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to prepare a letter to the Honorable Carol McQuiltuff, Minister of Employment, Workforce Development, and Disability Inclusion. The Honorable Chrystia Freeland, Deputy Prime Minister, and the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Ben Lobb, Huron Bruce MP, and the Honorable Lisa Thompson, Minister of Government and Consumer Services, and Huron Bruce MPP, in an effort to request the restoration of funds to the Center of Equal Learning Access, ECELA, and to reserve their funding and to reverse their funding cut. I do apologize, Anita, for that. I did stumble through that. Okay, she's just putting that out there, and that will this is a notice of motion that will be coming forward. And we're going to do bylaws, and I believe now, Carson, you usually read the bylaws for us. So bylaw number 20-2021, Fire Dispatch Service Agreement with Owen Sound Police Services Board. Do I have a mover? I had them all up above. Anita and Deputy Reeve Site. And I'm going to give it to you, Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that bylaw number 20 of 2021, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve Clerk to sign on behalf of council a fire dispatch agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and the Owen Sound Police Services Board, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve Clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. So Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Site?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey?
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Bylaw 11.2, bylaw number 21-2021, Storm Outlet License Extension and Agreement. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin Faulkner moving. Do I have a seconder? Do I have a second? Rick McBurney seconds. And I'll hand it over to you, Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that bylaw number 21 of 2021, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve Clerk to sign on behalf of council a license extension and agreement under lease ID M72546 between Her Majesty the Queen in Right of Ontario, as represented by the Minister of Government and Consumer Services and the Corporation of the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve Clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. So Deputy Reeve Site?
Yep.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. 11.3, bylaw number 22-2021, Goderich to Guelph Rail Line Land Lease Agreement. Do I have a mover? I have Trevor moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Kevin seconding. I'm going to hand it over to you, Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that bylaw number 22 of 2021, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve Clerk to sign on behalf of council a net lease agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and Her Majesty the Queen in Right of Ontario, as represented by the Minister of Government and Consumer Services, for the land, abandoned rail lands used for the Goderich to Guelph rail line, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve Clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. So Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Syke,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Announcements. A special council meeting will be held on Friday, March 26, 2021 at 9 a.m. through electric participation. The next regular council meeting will be held on Tuesday, April 6, 2021 at 6 p.m. in the North Huron Town Hall Theater unless notified otherwise. The next Police Services Board meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 16, 2021 at 7 p.m. at the North Huron Town Hall Theater. The next Economic Development and Recovery Committee meeting will be held on Thursday, March 18th, 2021 at 2 p.m. through electronic participation. The next Wing and BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, March 18th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. through electronic participation. The next Blythe BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, March 25th, 2021 at 8 a.m. through electronic participation. And the next Museum Committee meeting will be held on Thursday, April 8th, 2021 at 2 p.m. in the North Huron Town Hall unless otherwise notified. Other business. There is none. Closed session reporting out that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby proceeds at, anybody got a time for me? 9:02 p.m. into an in-camera session closed to the public to discuss the following: a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local boards, the armories. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving and I have Kevin seconding. Do you want to call that roll call, Carson?
Yep. Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Henderson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Syke?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0. So I'll end the open session meeting here and we will flip over to the closed session.
Thank you.